Before we start today's show today, I want to thank our great new sponsor, MyPillow. That's right, MyPillow. They sent me one of those, Mike Lindell and the guys did, and I've been sleeping on it for a couple of weeks now, and I've never slept better. Hey, I've got a huge and busy schedule. Not only do I do the show, but we run an advertising agency. We help other podcasters with their shows throughout the country. We're constantly talking to folks, going to concerts. So my sleep is very important to me. So thanks to MyPillow. And remember, it's got a 10-year warranty guarantee, 60-day money-back guarantee. And yeah, you see MyPillow in stores like Walmart and Walgreens, but you can only get the premium pillows by calling MyPillow directly. So grab you one of those premium pillows. Call this number right here, 1-800-338-2330, 1-800-338-2330. Reference the code SGNP when you talk to them and say, hey, I want that premium pillow that Darren on SGNP has. It's that simple. They'll sell it to you, and it'll make life a whole lot better. So if you're having trouble sleeping, call MyPillow today, 1-800-338-2330. Use the code SGMP or go to their website, mypillow.com, and check them out. Hey, make sure you tell them SGNP sent you.
Welcome to SGNP with your hosts, Darren Sutherland and Jeff Steele, one of the fastest growing Christian music podcasts of its kind. Darren and Jeff discuss industry information you will not find from your local radio station or in a magazine. Sit back for the next bit and take a listen to SGNP. The fun is about to begin.
And welcome once again to SGNP. Darren Sutherland and the good doctor, Dr. Jeff Steele. Jeff, how you doing today, my friend?
Well, I'm doing real good. It's a beautiful day here in Alabama. A little bit nippy, but that's all right. I put on an extra shirt and I'm ready to go.
Man, I got a pair of shorts on sitting in this studio. It's supposed to be 75 degrees today. So,
well, it probably is here too, but I'm a wee bit older than you, and I take a blood pressure medication that keeps me cold where I used to get hot. So maybe that's it.
You know what? We need to do a show one day on prescription medicines that we all take. We could get an 800 number and get all the people to call in, and you know we could probably fund 2 or 3 college educations just with prescription medicine costs for folks.
Well, I'll tell you, I went from seems like overnight, never had a problem. As a matter of fact, it's centered around the 50-year-old mark, and I've never been to the hospital. I very seldom went to the doctor. I sound like I'm giving the late Glenn Payne's testimony there. I just didn't go to the doctor much, never went to the hospital. And then overnight, during the decade of my 50s, man, I've nearly died 3 times. I've been to the hospital for surgery.
Oh, Lord. We could talk about sickness and all that all day long, brother. Hey, you know what? We need to talk about here, and I want to share this with folks because it feeds right in to our show, because today we got Arthur Rice coming on, and Arthur Rice sings at Dollywood, and he probably sings in the Kingdom Heirs, and Arthur Rice probably, Jeff, have sang to more non-gospel music fans than any gospel group in the history of gospel music, just by the sheer right of playing at Dollywood and there being so many people that come through there. But I saw an article this week, and we posted it on our Facebook page, Southern Gospel News Podcast, where Christians are dominating American Idol this year. 6 out of the 10 final contestants are claiming that they're Christians and have a relationship with Christ and are very vocal about it on the show. So, you know what? Well, and I think that's probably helping the numbers, if you want to know the truth about it. Look what the movie that we talked about the other week, look at the numbers it's gotten at the box office. So faith-based folks are getting out there.
Well, you know, you could not talk to a person who is who knows more about American Idol than I or any member of my family does, because as a family, we were on the bus back then. We used to watch American Idol every Tuesday night that rolled. We never missed it. We were very involved with all the people that were on there singing. It was just our family did. It's what we did. And I remember we were going across Knoxville, Tennessee one night. I don't know why we were out on a Tuesday night, and it may have been a Wednesday night, as I remember back, but my son, Brad, he was just a little guy back then, probably, 6, 7 years old. He was a major Reuben Studdard fan. that was the year Clay Aiken was on there too. And our whole family, I remember it was our family and Tony Green's family. We were crazy about Clay Aiken, the late Tony Green. We were crazy about Clay Aiken. And I remember the night specifically that Clay sang Bridge Over Troubled Water. Tony Green called me and he said, Jeff, he said, I don't know about the rest of y'all, said, but when that boy hit that last note of that song, I came up off my couch in Boone, North Carolina. I never forgot that. And Brad also had like his first major crush on a girl from that show. I don't remember who she was.
Carrie Underwood.
But when she, no, it was a lot earlier than that. When she got voted off the show, back to the Wednesday night deal, when she got voted off the show, Brad went back to sharing my bedroom at the back of the bus and locked the door and didn't come out for 30 minutes. I don't know what was happening, but he did not like her getting thrown off that show at all. But I was going to say all that to say this. The American Idol show has always been dominated by professing believers because most of these kids, and most of them are kids, grew up in the only avenue they had, and Mac Powell talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show. Yeah, they grew up singing in church. That was their only platform for singing. But when they got on that show, at least they had a platform. Most of the rest of them, came straight out of no performing whatsoever. They just knew they could sing. But these kids had already had some experience performing. So it's always, American Idol has always been dominated by professing believers. And it's just like the news cycle that we stay in nowadays. It doesn't surprise me that the media has finally caught up with that fact after all these years.
Yeah, and you know what? It's amazed me at how they're going. And if you want to find out more about this article, go to our Facebook page, Southern Gospel News Podcast. All you got to do is look it up and like it, and you can go right down there and read it like 3,335 of your other favorite friends that's on there. And you got a lot of friends on there. Jeff, man, I tell you what, great. Go ahead.
Let me say this real quick.
Yeah.
That's 3,300 likes in about 2 weeks.
3 weeks.
It's not like,
be 3 weeks this Friday.
Whichever. It's not like it's been up there for 7 or 8 years and we've finally eked out 3,300 people that have found it. No, this thing's been for 3 weeks. So we've really been blessed in that regard.
We have been blessed. And in addition, I want to thank Michael Booth again for coming on with us last week. He was on last week's show, and you can go back and listen to Michael Booth's show if you hadn't. That's the great thing about podcasts. You never miss anything because you can always go back and download it. But Jeff, just over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, close to 8,000 of our favorite friends listened to that show. So we're almost at 60,000 downloads. And we interviewed Arthur, just to be totally transparent, last week, and we were approaching 50,000 at that point. So we're actually approaching 60, but better than yet. I can talk about downloads. We can talk about American Idol. We can talk about Facebook numbers, but we got to mention this right here, and we don't mention it enough. Folks like Tony Gore's Barbecue Grill, folks like Kia, and folks like Tacoma Falls College. Without those guys, we would not be able to do this show. You want to know how to thank those people? Go to tfc.edu. Real simple. tfc.edu. Look up their website. Just check it out. Maybe even send them a note there on their information card. But just look it up. And you say, what difference does it make if I look it up and I don't say anything? Guess what, folks? They can measure every single person that looks at that website. So I would love just, Jeff, this week, totally, that everybody just load that website up, tfc.edu, and look it up. Wouldn't you, Jeff, just so they could see the numbers?
Not only that, but Tacoma Falls College is located in the northern part of the state of Georgia and right beneath South Carolina. So if you're thinking about somewhere to send your kids for a good Christian education, not only will they be getting a good Christian education, but they'll be getting it in the heart of Dixie, a great place for your kids to attend. They'll love it, and I think you'll feel good about it. So I just say, that's kind of a free commercial there.
That is a free commercial, but we don't care because we love the good folks, Dr. Bob and all the good folks up there at TFC. Good people. Visit them. That's tfc.edu. tfc.edu. You know, Jeff, we were talking about American Idol and how it's got Christians on it going to the secular world. Dollywood. Now, you've performed, and we're going to be talking to Arthur Rice here in just a second. You've performed at Dollywood. What is the difference in performing to a Dollywood crowd, Jeff? Because you've been there at the Harvest Days or some other things, I believe, and sang there. What's the difference in performing to a Dollywood crowd than performing to a church crowd or another crowd, something like that?
Well, in our case, in the case of the Steels anyway, it really wasn't all that different for us because we don't have our personal group, but others do. And that's okay. They're probably better than me because of it. We really don't have two different approaches to wherever we're singing. I'm sure if we were, performing at some event like the Super Bowl or something like that, we might have to find a way. But when we go to Dollywood, we pretty much do what we do everywhere we go.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all that different for us, but I understand the nature of your question. And the nature of your question, probably, if I've got you figured out here, is revolved around, isn't it a wonderful thing to be able to present whatever you do for the cause of Christ to a basically secular audience in a secular venue? That's one of the things I've got to pay a little bit of homage here to Dolly Parton, who realizes where she's located and who her core audience is. Man, I can't think of very many other people that would have done what she did in that part of the country and realized so much who her core audience was, and that there wouldn't be a Harvest Days in October. There wouldn't be the big performances at the celebrity theaters in Dollywood with your major gospel artists. They just wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Dolly. And she knew that about her audience. And, you criticize her all you want to, and some do. But that core audience and her understanding of it is the reason we're there. It's just that.
Well,
simple.
Jeff, all you've got to do to know Dolly's heart is go on YouTube and pull up "He's Alive." Just go to YouTube, Google Dolly Parton, "He's Alive." Let her sing that song to you, and you know where her heart is. And if you've seen the movie and you've seen the TV show Coat of Many Colors, which is so great. And it was based on her family and, her grandfather, the preacher. We could go on and on. But you know what? Let's quit going on and on because people don't want to hear us right now. They want to hear the great Arthur Rice. And we had the pleasure last week of sitting down with Arthur. And Arthur talks about his life at Dollywood, Jeff, along with his days with the Kingsmen Quartet. His cousin, the funny thing I found out about it was his first cousin's Ray Dean Reese. But more than anything, he talked about a man that you've loved and I've loved and Arthur's loved, Jim Hammel. And I think folks are going to get a real good message out of this.
Well, I'm sure nobody is surprised that Arthur is Ray Dean's cousin because according to Ray Dean, everybody is his cousin.
Yep. Well, are you his cousin, Jeff?
He says so. I mean, when you see Ray Dean, it's always a, "Hey, cousin, how you doing?" Everybody's a cousin.
Let's go to the Kia Skyline and listen to our good buddy, Arthur Rice, right here on SGNP, your home for all things gospel.
This is John B. Fuller, host of iTunes' #1 faith-based podcast in the world, Are You Real? Congratulations, Darren and Jeff, on a great start with your new podcast, Southern Gospel News Podcast. And hey, what's wrong with living right anyway?
Come see what all the smoke is about at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in the heart of the Smokies, Sevierville, Tennessee. Start off with T's loaded tater chips, some great sweet tea, then have some of his famous fried chicken, a pulled or sliced pork plate, or the best barbecue ribs in the Smokies. And oh, did we mention homemade mac and cheese? And dessert lovers, it's worth the trip just for a piece of cake. Voted the best barbecue in the Smokies, Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill in Sevierville, Tennessee. And remember, gospel music fans, you never know who you'll see while at Tony Gore's Barbecue and Grill. For more information, visit them 24/7 at TonyGore.com.
And welcome back to SGNP. Darren Sutherland and the good Dr. Jeffrey Steele on the line with us today. And joining us from Sevierville, Tennessee on the Kia Skype line is our good friend Arthur Rice, lead singer with the Kingdom Heirs. Arthur, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I tell you what, you were one of the first people that reached out to us when we started, and thank you for backing us up from day one. Don't you agree, Jeff?
Well, Arthur, all I can say is he tells us about how heroic we've both been in his life. That just means we're both getting old, buddy.
Let's don't go there.
There you go. Hey, Arthur, tell us, for the folks that's out there, we got a lot of gospel fans all across the country. And, people have heard of the Kingdom Heirs if they ever gone to Dollywood. But, we'll talk about that in a minute. Tell us a little bit about Arthur Rice, how Arthur Rice got started singing gospel music, and how he ended up with the Kingdom Heirs.
Well, I grew up really in a singing family. My mom and dad and my oldest sister used to, they sang as a trio when I was little. My dad sang with a couple of different quartets through the years, and I actually started playing bass guitar for my dad's group when I was 7.
Wow.
And then when I was 14, I would sing some, of course, back then, my voice was real high. So I loved Archie Watkins. I used to sing everything Archie ever sung. And then my voice changed when I was 14, and my dad's group lost their lead singer. And so I started singing lead in his quartet and sang, all the way through high school. And then after I got out of high school, I sang a couple of years with a group called the Payne Family out of North Carolina. They were the Gerald Payne family. And, of course, I went to church with Squire and Mark Trammell and Ernie and a bunch of those guys at Trinity Baptist Church there in Asheville. And so I knew those guys. And of course, I kind of had a history with the Kingsmen. Ray Dean, my dad actually got Ray Dean started singing.
Wow.
In the first quartet. And he was 14 also. I mean, it's been a long time. And so he kind of got him started in it. And so, and Ray is actually my cousin. We always kid about that on stage, but actually Ray is my cousin.
He's your actual cousin. I've never heard that before.
He is my actual cousin. He really is. And so that's kind of where that kind of got started. And so I knew those guys. Growing up, we'd go see them. And Ray was always good about, being nice. And all the guys were super nice to me. And then we sang with them, I think I was 20, I guess, 19 or 20. Yeah. And Eldridge heard me. That was the first time he'd really heard me sing. And he complimented me on my singing. I didn't think anything about it. And then he called me one day and said, I'd like for you to come and talk to me about singing with the group. And so, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm sure there's 1,000 people that get that phone call. And sure enough, I showed up and talked to him about it, and that was when Wayne Maynard left. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I'd like for you to come sing with the Kingsmen. Well, I was just, because I always wanted to be a Kingsman. I loved the Kingsmen, grew up with them, and that's kind of, where I kind of learned a lot of stuff just listening to them. And so I went with them in 83, and I stayed there through 89. And when I left, I really didn't, I really had no intention of leaving. I thought, man, I was always going to be a Kingsman. And because I loved it. It was such a great experience for me working with those guys. I loved being there. And my dad got sick. He had a brain aneurysm, and you don't live through many of those things. But God spared his life, and we got an extra 10 years out of his, or 15 years out of his life after that. And but I felt like I needed to go home. My dad had a business there in Asheville, and he was a front end mechanic. And I kind of grew up doing that. So I knew the business. I knew how to do it. I didn't really like doing it, but I knew how.
It paid the bills.
And, yeah. But for some reason, the Lord, I just felt like, that I should go home and kind of take care of the business for him. And so I really didn't understand because I thought I was right in the center of God's will. I felt like I was right where he wanted me. But, for some reason I had that urge. I thought, well, I need to do that. So I went home, and I really didn't do anything for about a year. Other than, maybe sing in church a few times and that sort of thing. But now looking back, I know that God was kind of putting me through school.
Yeah.
And he was schooling me, preparing me for this time. And so about a year later, Squire called me and asked me if I would sing with him. And we were only doing about 30 or 40 dates, I guess, a year, something like that, as a quartet. Mm-hmm. And then, people love Squire, and it was funny because everybody was, they didn't care if the quartet was there or not. As long as Squire was there, it didn't matter who else was there.
Well, he could sing Beulah Land backwards and everybody'd say amen, so it don't make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, anyways, I sang with him for about 5 years, and then I sang some solo stuff on the weekends, and I was just kind of it was just to the local church, really. I mean, nobody knew really that I was kind of out there. I just felt like that's where the Lord wanted me, and man, I realized now that He was really schooling me through that, and it really grounded me, and I was able to be at my home church and really got some great teaching, and it really solidified my what I was doing.
Right.
And then Steve French called me and said he'd like to talk to me about maybe coming to sing with the Kingdom Heirs. And of course, we always went to Dollywood, and I loved going to hear those guys. And I thought, man, what a great job this is just to sing. If you like to sing, right, that's the perfect job. And, you don't have to mess with the traveling. You don't have to do all the stuff that we put up with just to get to sing,
Right.
And
product tables and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that was in 95.
Let me ask you this about the Kingsmen real quick. I'm sure Jeff's got a question too. Uh-huh. You can't mention the Kingsmen in any context without mentioning Jim Hammel. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably the greatest MC that, between him and Hovey Lister, probably the two greatest MCs in the history of gospel music. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I have heard from people, and you tell me this. Hammel loved you, but he was a hard man to work for because he expected excellence. Okay. Is that a good description of Hammel on stage, or was it just off the cuff, ton of fun, boom, boom, boom? You never knew what was going to happen, so you better be on your A game.
That's exactly it. I mean, he kept you on your toes because you never knew what, I don't know that we ever did the same program twice. I mean, and he would mix it up, and I love that because it keeps it fresh to you. Right. You have to be on your toes because you never know what's coming. And Jim, man, Jim was such a great mentor to me. I love him, and I mean, he was tough at times, but man, he could mold you and make you, more than what you ever thought you could be. And I'll never forget that experience with him and Foxy and all the guys. But man, they were just so good to me, and I just loved being there.
It's one of those deals, Arthur, where Andrew Ishii was with us for about 3 years, last 7 or 8, and he used to just start to tell Kingsman stories and Hammel stories. And he was shocked because one of my favorite Hammel stories, we had a love-hate relationship. Hate's a strong word. But we did the Singing News cruise at the Quartet Convention one of the last years they were in Louisville. And by then, Hammel was emceeing the show because he had ceased public singing with the quartet. And he came on the boat that day. We were supposed to be there 2 days in a row. He came on the boat that first day, and he asked me, he said, I don't have a table. I don't have much stuff. Can I set my stuff on your table? And I said, sure, man, set it there. I don't care. Well, back at that point, the Steels were doing a really strong pro-family show because we had all the little kids that are all in their mid-30s now. But matter of fact, Brad's on the front line with us now. We were doing our strong family show, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, which was 7 o'clock my time. And I hated that time frame. But the people loved it, and they came and literally bought everything we had, bought everything Hammel had off our table that day. And that night, Jeff Templeton came to me and he said, Hammel says he doesn't want you singing any more slow stuff, none of that mama stuff, none of that family stuff. Well, of course, I got mad and I gave him his tickets back and I said, you tell Hammel I won't be there in the morning and we're not going to do that.
Hard-headed.
Well, it wasn't very long. Oh, yeah, I mean, right. Never mind, he sold everything he had off our table that day. But he comes around later that night, and this is an absolute true story. If I'm lying, may God not allow me to finish this statement. Hammel walked up to me. He got right in my ear, and he said, son, I'm sorry. He said, I never should have said that. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. I said, what? He said, you'll never be in the Hall of Fame, and neither will I, because we're too hard-headed, and we say what we think, and we say it too quick and all that kind of stuff. And then he backed out of my ear. And the only man besides my father on the face of this earth, he kissed me right on the mouth. Most unbelievable, surreal scenario I've ever experienced in my life. But right on the mouth. It wasn't one of those man-woman things, but, I mean, it was kind of like I love you, buddy. And within 2 or 3 months after that, we did the singing in the Smokies with the Inspirations. And Hammel was there sitting behind his table 4 hours before the concert started, and it was hot. So I just went to him and I said, Jim, come sit on the bus with us. It's cool. It's comfortable. We'll give you anything you want. Doesn't make any difference. Pretend like it's your bus. And he wouldn't come on. He wouldn't come on my bus or anybody else's bus. He just sat there in a chair behind that table and sweated. And I've almost grown to hate the kind of treatment that was put on him, that he basically allowed to be put on him there at the end. Because it was true what he told me, that he'd made a lot of enemies during the years, it's because of the way he acted. But that wasn't the real Jim. You just had to know him. Everything I know about running a platform that I learned from him. And he was a great, great guy. And I'm just so glad I had the opportunity to know him in my life.
It really was, Hammel was 100% Kingsman. I mean, he was, if it didn't promote the Kingsmen, if it didn't make them better or stronger, he was really, really hard. And it wasn't a thing that he didn't like anybody. He highly respected you. It's a different, he came from a different era, when it was, it was a dog eat dog kind of thing. And he never could transition out of that. It was always that way. And that really hurt him in his later years, because he did develop, a kind of a bad rap. And he did, get some enemies, and I really hate that, because you're exactly right, Jeff. Nobody really knew the real Hammel. I mean, they really didn't. And then when he left, he lost that. He lost that drive that he had.
He actually told me let me say this. He told me one time. He said, he said, he looked at me and said, Jeff, he said, you got a lot of people that don't like you before you get out of here, because we're so much alike. And he said, I just want you to understand this drive that you have that's so hard and so tough just to be the best. I didn't care. I didn't dislike anybody. Just when we got to a place, I had a singular drive that we be our best and do as well as we could. And he said, that's going to, at the end of the way, his exact words, at the end of the way, you're going to find out how many friends it cost you along the way to have that drive, because there's so many that don't have it, and they just get mad at you because you do have it, and you're going to find out how many friends it cost you. And he was exactly right.
And for our listeners that don't know who Jim Hammel is, and Arthur and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim Hammel's the one that helped create the father of rock and roll, so to speak, when he told Elvis Presley he wasn't good enough to join his Blue Ridge Quartet back in the day. Am I correct? Do I have the story straight?
It is. And the main reason for that wasn't that he didn't think Elvis could sing. Elvis couldn't sing harmony.
Yeah.
All he could sing was the melody. He didn't know how to sing harmony, and that's the reason, that he told Elvis that. He said you need to just keep driving that bread truck because you can't sing harmony.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. I could tell another Hammel story. We could do a whole show on Hammel. Maybe we need to do that later on down the road. But anyway,
well, let me say this. Let me say this.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Arthur Rice for a minute.
Yeah, because we got to talk about Dollywood running out of time, so we don't want it to make it the Hammel show.
I'm sitting in my church office right now, where I pastor Redeeming Grace Church in Coleman, Alabama, and I want to say this, and I want everybody to hear me loud and clear. Arthur Rice may be one of the most truly spiritual people that I've ever known in this business. And if there's anything, and there's a lot of things good about Southern gospel music, but if there's anybody I could point to that they need to pattern their lives and their singing and everything after, it would be Arthur Rice. And that is a genuine feeling of mine and my whole family. And, Arthur, a lot of people look at the Kingdom Heirs, and they say, oh, they're just a show group. I'm going to tell you something. They sing to more people that need to hear what they need to hear than anybody else in this entire industry. And I'm glad you're where you are. I'm glad that Dolly has opened that door. And I'm glad that people are able to hear the gospel right there in the middle of a secular environment. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, man. You don't know what that means to me. I really do appreciate it. Wow. I'm very humbled at that.
Arthur, tell us a little bit about what it's like to sing at Dollywood on a daily basis. I mean, you guys do what, 3-4 shows a day, 5 days a week? I don't know. How many days a week?
We're there 5 days a week, and we do 2 or 3 programs a day.
Wow. So you're singing basically 10 to 12 shows a week.
Yes.
3 times the normal setup of most gospel groups if they sing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on average. So does that take a toll on your voice, in all honesty?
It can, and it has on several of the singers that we've had in the past, and it will. Especially, it's really hard on tenors. Yeah, especially, and of course, I'm not easy on tenors either. So, it really can, and you really have to make sure that that you're singing correctly, or and you go through. You go through spells and seasons with your voice, and any time singing full time, singing all the time, you go through seasons where you think, well, it's a struggle, and you think, man, this is it, but you just stick with it and you just fall back to your basics. I was very my mom took me when my voice changed. She took me to voice lessons. I had 7 years of voice lessons every week for 7 years, and she took me until the time I could start driving myself. And she took me every week, and that really grounded me as far as I started so early that by the end of that time of taking voice lessons, that it just it drills it into you to sing correctly. And so I've always kind of had that to kind of fall back on when I get into those, those spells where you're struggling a little bit, or you're tired, your voice is tired. You have to go back to the basics of what to kind of get you through some of that sometimes. So I feel very fortunate that I had that background growing up. In fact, I would have people come up and they say, well, how do you do this? Well, I really don't know. I'd have to stop and think about it, because it was hard for me to really, in my 20s to really, I had to really kind of remember back, okay, why am I, I get to this, or how do I sound like this, or how do I do this? And it becomes second nature to you. And I'm so thankful that I've had that, and God has really blessed me through the years. And I went through several years there with my back. I was on so many painkillers and so much stuff. It was really taking a toll on my voice, and I really struggled for a couple of years. But man, I went through a time of depression after my back surgery, and the Lord just brought me through that. And man, I look back, and Jeff, I know you can agree with this, that God puts you through His schooling and shows you how real He is, and it just solidifies your stand for Him, to know that He's real, and that's the thing that we need to show the world today, that He's real, and He's real in our lives, and if we can ever figure that out, that He doesn't hate us, He's not putting us through this stuff because He doesn't like us, or He's a kid with a magnifying glass burning the ants. That's not it. He's trying to teach us something. If we'll get to the point where we'll be open to that, life is so much easier than to fight it.
Yeah, we don't need to always hold our hands above our heads to block whatever He's sending to us. We need to open them up so we can receive what He's sending to us, because He loves us more than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Arthur, got one more question for you. I know people all over the world want to know, because you're there at Dollywood all the time, and you've met Dolly, and no doubt you're friends with her. What was it like? And I don't know that this has ever happened, but I'm going to assume it's happened. Has the Kingdom Heirs, what's been their experience of ever singing with Dolly? Have y'all had that experience? And if so, what is that like? Because for what you see on Dolly, there's a lot of people don't understand. Dolly gives and gives and gives and gives and gives. And what she gave to the community after the fires up there was remarkable. And could you speak to that for just a second?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've done several things with Dolly over the years. When I first came with the group, we did a TV program that she did on TNN called Precious Memories. And we did 3 days of 2 days rehearsal and 1 day of the program, recording the program, and man, it was so much fun. Back in the 80s when the Kingsmen were coming on, we were pals with a lot of the great country artists and stuff. They had such a respect for our music, and it's vice versa. We had respect for them, and it was just a different era. And so, I never had stars in my eyes for artists. They were just fellow artists, And so when we got to work with Dolly, it's great because she's just so professional, and just she's that way too. I mean, she wants it to be the best that it can be, and she wants you to do the best that you can be. We've been on a couple of albums with her. We've done several albums with her actually, and she comes to the park and we performed with her there, and she is just. I'm telling you, people don't realize what she has done for this area, this community. She really has given back to her home, and it's a tremendous thing what she has done.
Awesome.
And one more thing, let me say this about something I said earlier. Hammel told me neither one of us would ever be in the Hall of Fame. Of course, that's not anything I aspire to anyway, but he did get in before he got out of here, and thank God for that.
And
yes. He may have been posthumously inducted. I don't remember. He is in there.
No, actually, he was. It was a couple of years before he passed away that he came in, and in fact, Jeff Chapman, our bass singer, he does impersonations of different singers, and man, he can sound just like Jim Hammel. And we got to do the song for his induction, and we did blood lifted me. But it was so much fun. I'm so glad that he got in because he really deserved it.
Arthur, real quick, we got to run, but real quick, tell everybody about Dollywood and the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame and that sort of thing, and the Southern Gospel stuff up there at Dollywood. Just fill us in real quick.
We feel so blessed to have the Hall of Fame right there in Dollywood, and I know that it's kind of inconvenient for a lot of our fans to just not be able to just come to the museum. They have to buy a ticket to get into Dollywood. But I really feel like if it wasn't for Dollywood, if they hadn't opened the door for us to put the Hall of Fame there in '99, I don't think that we would have a brick and mortar place for Southern gospel music. And to be able to be in a secular arena to present our music and our message to the world. I mean, it's not just to the country, it's to the world. I mean, we have folks from all over the world come into our program that are, they wouldn't come to a concert or a church or something, but they will come into our program because it's a show on Park. And, we're very fortunate to have a theater there. It seats 1,000 people. And, it's not full every program, but, it's pretty full. And there's a lot of people that come through our program on the, every day that we're there. And so we feel very fortunate that the Lord has opened that door and allowed us to present the gospel. And we do it in a, we don't do anything different there that we wouldn't do in a church. I mean, we realize there's certain, we kind of, we do some fun stuff but the underlying message there is, Steve and I talked years ago. We decided, what, we can come out here and we can just sing, some ditty songs and have fun and go on, or we can use this opportunity to make sure that our songs are scripturally based, that make sure that our songs are grounded, make sure that the words coming through are understood and the message that comes through is understood. And the Lord has blessed us for that. He has protected us and took care of us. And in spite of us, He's took care of us.
Arthur, we appreciate it so much, man. And we're going to check in with you later. And thank you for joining SGNP this afternoon. All righty, my friend?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anytime. Right. I'd love to be on the program.
Thank you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Love you guys.
All right. Love you, man.
Hey, folks. Michael Booth here with the Booth Brothers. And what's wrong with living right anyway?
SGNP is brought to you by Kia. Join SGNP this summer for the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, a free concert at select local Kia dealers. The first concert is June 14th with the McCameys at Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
The God on the mountain is still God in the valley.
It's the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, starting June 14th with the McCameys at Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa. Part of Kia, America's best value summer event. America loves Kia and gospel music. It's the Kia Summer Nights Concert Series, absolutely free. Brought to you by SGNP and Julio Jones Kia in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, June 14th.
Great interview from our good buddy Arthur Rice with the Kingdom Heirs. And if you get a chance, go up to Dollywood and see them. They're right there when you walk in the park. I mean, you don't even have to walk that far, Jeff. You just walk right through the gates, and the amphitheater's right there in front of you, and the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame's right there to the left. So check both of those out. I don't think there's a finer man singing today than Arthur Rice. What do you think, Jeff?
That is, you just said a mouthful. I talk a lot about Squire Parsons, who I've known for, 30 years. And I always say the same thing about Squire. It's always the truth. He is as fine, if not the finest example of a Southern gentleman I've ever met, but not very far behind Squire is Arthur Rice. He's just such a pleasant, nice, and kind individual. The word kind of gets stuck to me when I talk about other people. Can't say it about everybody.
No, you can't.
When you can, you can't say it often enough.
We could do a show on our favorite Kingsman moments, and we're going to be brief. But, had it not been for Arthur, I don't know that I would be such a huge fan of gospel music. And here's why, Jeff. When I was 17 years old, man, that's back a few years, don't you think, about 30-something years ago, I remember getting my first gospel cassette at the time. And it was Mississippi Live. And it was with the Kingsmen. And Big Jim Hammel that we talked about just there, emceeing the show. And, Hammel could just do it. And Arthur was on the tape. Gary Shepard was on the tape. Of course, Ray Dean Reese was there. I think Big Ed Crawford was there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Greg Fox playing the drums. I don't know. I think Randy Miller was back there, so that might have been a little too early for Randy. But just some good Kingsmen back in the day. Jeff, what's one of your favorite Kingsmen memories?
Well, I promoted that Mississippi Live show, so that just shows you how old I am. It was their second crack at recording a live album there in Jackson. First one fell through, and they had to record it for technical reasons at Opryland. But they promised that night they'd come back, and they did, and recorded Mississippi Live. Ed did that When Mama Prayed, Heaven Paid Attention.
Yep.
You know who wrote that song?
Who's that? Squire?
Ronnie Henson.
Ronnie Henson.
Ronnie Henson.
You know what?
I mean, he's just a writer, man. Doesn't matter who he's writing for, he can come up with a song.
He is a writer, and we need to do a show on writers. You're no slouch of a writer yourself, but let me throw this out there. And I usually don't throw names out there like this, but you brought writers up. But on Southern Gospel News Podcast, it was good to see Diane Wilkerson, who's a fairly good writer herself, great writer, you would say.
Fairly good.
Fairly
good. My.
She's awesome. She is awesome.
You always talk about the Godfather. She's the godmother of writers in Southern Gospel music.
Well, she joined our Facebook page the other night. She joined our Facebook page.
There's something else about Diane, too. She's kind of having a renaissance right now. She's been writing for, 40 years, but here lately, man, her name is all over the charts. She's writing like a crazy person. She is really a great writer.
We need to get her on the air. We need to pull that off and get her and talk to her. Because, here's when we do this show, here's the way I'm going to do it, Jeff. I'm just going to tell you. I'm not going to let you talk. I'm going to interview you, and I'm going to interview her, and I'm going to interview Ronnie Henson, because I want to know what goes on in the writer's mind when they're penning the song. Now, let's not waste it right here on this show. We'll do it in another show. But think of all the great songs. Ronnie, what was you thinking about when you wrote The Lighthouse? Jeff, what was you thinking about when you wrote this? That's what I want to know. And, great thing. But let's finish up with the Kingsmen and Arthur Rice. You mentioned the Kingsmen Mississippi Live. Another tape I loved of the Kingsmen back in the day was when Roy Acuff introduced the Kingsmen there at Stand Up at Opryland. Now, let me ask you this, Jeff. Do you think that was planned when Roy said, "Please make welcome to the Grand Ole Opry, the Blackwood Brothers"? Do you think
he said the Statesmen?
The Statesmen, that's right. He said the Statesmen, and Hammel said, "Roy, if you say the Blackwood Brothers, we're going home," or something like that. I forget what he said.
Right. I also remember Hammel in the background said, "No, we're going to keep it." And they did. I think it was on the project.
It was on the project. That's the only reason I know. That's the only reason I know. And we need another show we need to do, and we need to do a Hammel show one day. Hammel did a radio interview with me one time. I wished I had it so I could tell the story about him being at Memphis Assembly of God. When we do the show, I'll tell that story. But that was his daddy's church, if I believe, if that's correct. It was a big assembly.
I know that story, and if he were here, I wouldn't tell it. And I may not be a part of telling it anyway. I may just give you the show and let you tell it.
He told it in an interview live with me. It was a funny story, but anyway.
Oh, my.
It was a great day. Great day. I love Jim Hammel. You love Jim Hammel. We appreciate Arthur Rice and his fine words about Jim Hammel. Jeff, before we get out of here, we got to remind everybody about the Brad Steele Project. That's Jeff's son, great writer in his own right. And quite frankly, folks, I've looked at a lot of his material, judging from the outside looking in. Check this kid out. He's great. He does a great job. But when we talk about the Brad Steele Project, not only do we talk about his frontline singing with the Steels, not only do we talk about his great writing, and he's got a great new song that we're going to debut on this show coming up pretty soon. But, Jeff, the Brad Steele Project, how we've kind of played with it is, If mom, dad, grandparents, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, you don't know how to download this podcast, go to somebody under 30 years old. Ask them, how do I download a podcast? They'll share that with you. If they don't know and they're under 30, they're not the person you need to talk to. Find somebody who can download a podcast, because all you do is go to your podcast app on your iPhone, on your computer, on your Android, hit the button, search Southern Gospel News Podcast. Once you find it, you'll see our old-timey microphone sitting there, Jeff, and hit that button, hit subscribe, and you, like so many of your friends and neighbors, can listen to our show every single week. And that's the easiest way to get it, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, no question.
So, Jeff,
you caught me with a piece of cheese in my mouth.
Always eating, man. Always eating. I got to get out of here now, go eat some lunch myself. So I've been thinking about Dollywood, been thinking about, what's your favorite food when you go to Dollywood, Jeff? You like those, are you like me and like them funnel cakes or something like that? That's some good stuff. That'll make you hungry just thinking about it. Well,
they have funnel cakes, and they've got these great big sausage sandwiches that are really good. As a matter of fact, people probably don't know this. Every time we've ever played Dollywood, I think we've been there 4 times, they take the artists back where the employees eat. And, the employees don't eat that good food we do. They go back in a little trailer and they eat, it's like a cafeteria. They have food in there for the employees and the artists that want to eat there. So it's a machine. Dollywood is a machine. All these theme parks are a machine, and I don't know.
First class organization. First class organization. And let me just.
I'm just proud we live in a country where those kind of places can exist and do exist, and God bless America.
Exactly right, Jeff. It just shows one thing, and I will say this to every group as long as we're doing this show, and I'll say this to every country star. Country stars keep singing gospel music. Rock stars keep singing gospel songs. Southern gospel artists keep getting out of the churches and getting into the world and sharing your music at places like Dollywood and other places. Contemporary artists do the same thing, because the more places we share Jesus, the better off we are. Don't you think, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. That's the key.
Hey, Jeff, I got one question for you. You know what that is, my friend?
What is it?
What's wrong with living right anyway?
Not one thing.
You've been listening to SGNP with your host, Darren Sutherland and Jeff Steele. Thank you for another week. We'll talk to you this Friday, and tell your friends and family all about us. Share this. We look forward to talking to you soon.
SGNP is excited you chose to listen today. If you'd kindly leave a remark and rating in the podcast remarks section, we surely would appreciate it. Please share with a friend or family member. Look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and our new website, SouthernGospelNewsPodcast.com. And remember the Kia Summer Nights concert series, all 100% free, coming to a town near you. For more information on the concert series or to advertise your products, services, concert event, or new project on SGNP and reach a 100% guaranteed number of people in your area, call Tim Newton at 770-874-3200 or email him today, tnewton@bgadgroup.com. Let us geo-target our ads for you, something radio nor magazine can do.